do record this for our podcast and our YouTube channel. And I'm going to say, welcome everybody. Good to have you with us tonight. And as soon as I finish getting myself together here, welcome to our 4-step workshop. And I'm going to do something first and talk about why we do a 4-step, why we do a 4-step in the first place. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had a whole bunch of this emotional baggage, and the whole purpose of doing a 4-step is to get rid of all of the emotional baggage. Resentment is part of emotional baggage in our lives, and I carry all this pain that I've drug through my whole life. So I got a couple of things in here. It's just kind of some fun stuff to take a look and to see how we hang on to things, and see if I can get to the right things here. You know, in this bag I have many relationships that I have carried from childhood on through my entire life. And I have recycled that stuff and the emotional pain over and over again. So I'm just going to go to the first love of my life, you know. And she gave me this little picture. Really isn't worth anything, doesn't mean anything, but she gave it to me, right? And here I am later in life, and I'm still lugging this thing around. And then, you know, now today, I'm in a relationship with somebody else, but I'm still carrying around a picture of her, the love of my life. Actually, this was the love of my life. This was wife number 3, and for me, it was until death did we part. But, you know, the idea is I've got a picture of somebody else while I'm involved with somebody new. And so what am I doing? I'm creating emotional baggage in this new person's life. So as I go through all of this, and as I go through all of these relationships, there's something that I'm not doing. The whole rest of the world has tried to put me in this box, and I never fit into anybody else's box because I'm trying to live up to their standards and take care of their thoughts, feelings, and emotions, yet I don't even know how to take care of mine. Some of us who have gotten involved in relationships through the process of 13 stepping, you know, step 1, my life is unmanageable, step 12, I'm fixing to share it with you, have come to this place where we have come to the understanding that 2 sickies don't make a wellie. Especially when we get involved with somebody else, we have a tendency to make them our higher power instead of finding a relationship with God. So what happens in most relationships that we get involved with? I never got in a relationship in my younger years because of somebody's great thinking and great mind. There was generally some sort of romantic or sexual attraction, right? And as soon as those things started falling to the wayside, I started seeking outside comforts for my satisfaction, like you know, all those magazines that they sell in the store that require paper bags on them so that nobody really knows what they are. And then we have things like we come into the age of technology, right? And we come out with cell phones and all of a sudden, ooh, there's all of these apps and dating apps and stuff that I can start talking to other people when I'm still involved in this relationship. And I start doing some real sick and unhealthy things because I'm trying to feed the things in my life that I'm missing out on or that I'm lacking, and I'm trying to build up my confidence in all of these things, and I end up going down some very slippery, unhealthy slopes. And then as I go through this relationship, there's something that we never talk about, and that's the elephant in the room. And here's what's happened with this little guy. The elephant in the room is my alcoholism, because as things start getting worse, I start drinking more and more, and as I start drinking more and more, I start doing more and more harmful things, and I start continue to blame the rest of the world for all of my problems. It's all everybody's fault. I'm the victim. Everybody's doing it to me. And then one day the discussion comes along when we do talk about the elephant in the room. And one of the things that happens in relationships, as so many of us know, when things aren't going our way, the element of anger gets introduced into a discussion or a conversation, and all of a sudden we're not happy, and we get angry. And when we get angry, we do things like pick up your favorite statue and hurl it across the room. This poor little guy, he was a beautiful statue at one time, but he lost his head in one of those fits of rage. And as we go through these fits of rage and acting out and payback and all these sorts of things, what am I doing? I'm taking that person as an emotional hostage, and I'm trying to control and manipulate them. And what's happened as a result of all these years of multiple relationships, this is my favorite t-shirt, by the way, I happen to end up with the hole in the soul. And I am just more and more broken because I haven't learned how to take care of myself. And of course, this is my favorite way of wearing this t-shirt, right? That way I can do all kinds of stupid stuff with it. And when that doesn't work, when absolutely none of that works, I go to the comfort that I've had all my life since I was a little boy, the old smelly blanket. And I take that old smelly blanket and I wrap around myself, and it's the place where I'm content, where I feel safe. It's my place of depression and hopelessness and despair. And it's what's been so comfortable to me all these years. So essentially the whole idea of this 4-step process is giving me a way to be able to heal from all of that. Because I don't want to hurt people anymore. I don't want to be hurt, and I don't want to continue to carry this pain around. So we're going to show you the process out of the big book tonight. We're going to do a little foundational stuff, and feel free to take notes as we go along. You're welcome to take screenshots or hold your camera up and take pictures of the slides or whatever you want to do. So you can unpin me now, Trish. Thank you. And Trish is going to start the slideshow. And it takes us about an hour and a half to do this, folks.
So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Big Book 4th Step Workshop. And for previous recordings of this and a whole bunch of other information, you can visit our website at Lppbbsgaa.org.
Let's open this up with the set-aside prayer to open our hearts and minds. It's on the screen in front of you. God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, the 12 steps, the big book, the meetings, my disease. But most especially, God, please set aside everything I think I know about you, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth.
In our preamble, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Please keep in mind that this is a workshop. We will be discussing some real life examples of what could be difficult things for some. While questions are encouraged for clarification, we do not expect specific discussion to encroach on the topics that should be saved for your sponsor or a one-on-one conversation. Feel free to take notes as we go along. This workshop should not be used as a platform to start sharing your fifth step.
And please use your notebook to write down the slide number from the lower right-hand corner of each slide. That way we can take questions at the end, but we will know which slide number to refer back to for clarification and further understanding.
And we're going to talk a little bit about our triangle in Alcoholics Anonymous. We always hear, because we read the triangle from left to right, we always hear unity, service, and recovery, but actually the foundation starts at the bottom of the triangle, and it gives those other legs support to stay in place. So recovery, the mind, found in the big book from pages XXV to page 164, a set of 12 spiritual principles that are the 12 steps. Have you continued to actually take the 12-step process outlined in the big book? And our traditions, the unity in body found in the fellowship, a set of 12 spiritual principles found in the traditions. Do you have a group you are committed to? Is your group committed to the 12 steps, and does your group live by the 12 traditions? And service and spirit found in carrying the message, set of 12 spiritual principles found in the 12 concepts. This applies from the group level through the service structure all the way to GSO. Are you working with others and taking them through the 12 steps?
And before I move on, I'm going to welcome those who just came and just repeat for them. Feel free to take screenshots if you'd like to. And if you have questions, please write down the number in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and then we'll go back to those screens at the end for questions and clarification. So, while this is a fourth step workshop, it's always good practice to review the foundations of steps 1, 2, and 3 before beginning. I do this with the ladies that I work with. Therefore, we will be reviewing some of the hot spots to be sure that the foundation is intact leading into step 4.
Through the information we read in the doctor's opinion, along with the first 44 pages, we are given the information we need to self-diagnose our alcoholism. Only 51 pages in all lead to this decision. This is our step 1.
And step 1 from our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, on page 30. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed.
Bang! And from page 60, we're going to take a look at the ABCs, but we're going to look at them just a little bit differently than how we normally read them. Being convinced. Am I convinced that I am an alcoholic and that my life is unmanageable? Step 1. B, am I convinced that no human power could have relieved my alcoholism? Still step 1. And C, am I convinced there is a power greater than my own power that can and will relieve my problem? A and B, and this is step 2.
And referring back to We Agnostics on pages 50 and 51, And this chapter is a pathway to letting go of old ideas and old beliefs and opening my heart and mind to finding new ideas and new beliefs. So, the book says, this happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell us why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them.
And now we're going to go to some familiar pages in the book from pages 60 through 62, and it's a life based on self-will. But we're going to read it in the first person, and folks, we hear people say a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous, find yourself in this book. And what I need to do is absolutely, this is the way I do it, in the first person. Trish, while I start doing that, can you send Larry a message to go out and come back in? His audio's not connecting. Thank you. I don't know if he can hear us or not, but he's not connected. So, life based on self-will in the first person. If my arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as I wish, the show would be great. Everybody, including me, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, I may sometimes be quite virtuous. I may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, I may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, I am more likely to have varied traits. Okay, we got you now, Larry. Welcome.
And what usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. I begin to think life doesn't treat me right. I decide to exert myself more. I become, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit me. Admitting I may be somewhat at fault, I am sure that the other people are more to blame. I become angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is my basic trouble? Am I not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Am I not a victim of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only I manage well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things I want? And do not my actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Am I not, even in my best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony?
I am self-centered, egocentric as people like to call it nowadays. I'm like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining about the sad state of the nation. I am like the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. I'm like politicians and reformers who are all sure that all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. I'm like the outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him. I am like the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever my protestations, am I not mostly concerned with myself, my resentments, or my self-pity? Selfishness and self-centeredness, that, I think, is the root of my troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt me, seemingly without provocation. But invariably, I find that at some point in the past, I have made decisions based in self, which later place me in a position to be hurt.
So my troubles, I think, are basically of my own making. They arise out of myself, and I am an extreme example of self-will run riot, though I usually don't think so. Above everything, I must be rid of this selfishness. I must, or it kills me. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of getting entirely rid of self without his aid. I've had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but I could not live up to them, even though I would have liked to. Neither could I reduce my self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on my own power. I had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, I had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, I decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be my director. He is the principal, I am his agent. He is the father, and I am his child. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which I will pass to freedom.
Now that the book has given us ideas that our problem is based in self, we need a pathway towards finding out our own selfishness and self-centeredness, fears and delusions are. These come from the process of the four-step inventory. The first three columns are centered around our resentments and how they affected us. Everything after that looks at our own thoughts, actions, and patterns. This is the discovery process of who we have become.
First of all, I had to quit playing God. Why? It didn't work.
Which brings us to our third step prayer. And before I read this prayer, all of that stuff that we read on pages 60 through 62, this is just a thought. Do the words in this prayer, could it be that some of that stuff is what I'm asking God to relieve me from as I go through this prayer? So our third step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. I'd like to point out that there is no amen after this prayer. And the reason is because the third step prayer starts the cycle of 5 steps, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the amen will come at the end of the 7th step prayer. This process is how and where I learn what my will in my life has truly been. It's also the process of where I learn how to give all of that stuff to God. And there's probably a slide that says all of that.
Nope.
Nope, okay. Well, ad-libbing.
So, the 3 aspects of a relationship with God from page 62. Director and actor. A director runs the show, the actor listens for directions. On my own, have I failed to provide what I need to be okay? And am I ready to make the decision that hereafter God will direct my life, instead of me? The principal and the agent. An agent represents who the principal or employer would have them be. Have I failed to be the person I would have me be, and failed to make others who I need them to be? Am I ready to make the decision that hereafter I will represent who God would have me be? And father-child. A child trusts their father can provide what they are incapable of doing on their own. Have I failed in directing my life on my own power? Am I ready to make the decision that hereafter I will trust that God will provide what I need?
There's many workbooks, 4-step workbooks available. However, the 4th step was never meant to be a check-the-box inventory. The instructions in the big book always say, referring to our lists, which we have written down in detail. There's places like Hazelton and other people that have 4-step workbooks, and they're just a check-the-box kind of thing. There's one workbook out there that has 144 questions on why I'm powerless, just in step 1 alone. So The big book gives us the simplest process that I have ever seen to be able to do this work. So, a notepad and a pencil.
Before I begin, I pray something like this. God, please help me see the truth about the things in myself which have been blocking me from you.
And in our big books on page 55, there's a diagram there. It has 3 columns, but right now for this purpose we're just going to use 2. And we are usually as definite as this example. First 2 columns, work each column from top to bottom. List all of the names and then all of the causes. What happens, folks, if we start going across and we put the name, then we put the cause? What happens is we end up feeling some kind of emotional pain, and we'll never finish the list. We'll say, oh hell no, that hurts, I'm not doing it. So the example is this: Mrs. Brown, or Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, my employer, and my wife. The cause: Mr. Brown, his attention to my wife. Told my wife of my mistress, and Brown may get my job at the office. Mrs. Jones, she's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend, and she's a gossip. My employer, unreasonable and unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. My wife, misunderstands and nags me. She likes Brown, and she wants the house put in her name.
After doing the first 2 columns, then we're going to add the 3rd column. And we're going to again work top to bottom. And the 3rd column that we use, the items in the 3rd column are the 7 areas of self, which begin on page 64. And these are self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. So we've got Mr. Brown, we've got the causes, why I'm mad at him. What does that affect? It affects my sex relations, it affects my self-esteem. And next to self-esteem, I have fear put in parentheses. I'm resentful at Mrs. Jones. The reasons why I'm resentful at her: it affects my personal relationship, and it affects my self-esteem, and there's that fear again. I'm resentful at my employer. We've talked about the causes. This affects my self-esteem, there's fear again, and my security. And I'm resentful at my wife. We know the causes. This affects my pride, my personal and sex relations, and my security, and there's that word fear again.
All 3 of those columns are lies.
But those are my feelings.
But feelings aren't facts.
Oh. Feelings aren't facts, but they are valid. And we need to find out where they come from and then decide what we're going to do with them.
There are people who will look at the chart on page 65 and say this is the 4th step. However, there is more work to do. The full directions start on page 65 and end on page 71. Page 72 states, we have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. Causes and conditions from page 64. Without these other columns, I am missing most of my discovery process. The following slides are the rest of this process.
So from Alcoholics Anonymous, page 66 and 67. Before each 4th column, consider in paragraph form, what have I done, or how have I done the things I've resented in column 2 to the person I listed in column 1 or others. Or in other words, if I'm mad at you for doing something, I've got to look at me and see how often I've done that same behavior to somebody else. and that references page 66, paragraph 4. This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, like ourselves. And after considering this realization, we say the fourth step prayer from page 67. This is a sick person like myself. How can I be helpful to them? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. And this could possibly be the beginning of forgiveness. Because I'm asking God to remove my anger, and I'm also asking God, how can I be helpful to them? And if I'm angry, I'm not willing to be helpful to you. And if I'm being helpful to you and serving you, it's really hard for me to be angry at you. So, is this the beginning of forgiveness?
Methinks so. So, this is basically what our the first two columns of our inventory look like when they're actually on paper. From page 65 should look like when it is completed. These are individual resentments. Notice there are multiple resentments per page. So, at the top of every page we write, God, please let me see the truth about who I'm resentful at, resentment inventory. And we have these pages available for you with basically everything except for your part of the writing. So if you would like us to send it to you, if you will put your email in the chat, we will be happy to send them out, and you can print as many as you need. So, Mr. Brown, first resentment, his attention to my wife. Second resentment, told my wife of my mistress. And third resentment, may get my job at the office. Then Mrs. Jones, first resentment, she's a nut, she snubbed me. And the second resentment there is she committed her husband and he's my friend. Third resentment, my employer. First resentment is he's unreasonable or unjust, overbearing, and threatens to fire me. We would have completed the wife and the rest of employer. However, the page just wasn't big enough. So for this purpose, but that gives you a general idea. The reason that we do one resentment per page is just simply this. In many cases, we have multiple resentments against a person. So if we work each resentment through individually, it becomes easier to let go of smaller resentments instead of it all being a Chinese finger puzzle or a big pile of spaghetti that's stuck together. What we're doing is we're pulling it out one noodle at a time. We can let go of those smaller things much easier, so that by the time we get to the things, something that we're just totally mad as hell about, we find out it might not be such a big deal, and it becomes easier to let go of.
So on this next page, we're looking at that same form we've just been looking at, but on the left it's filled in with the information from the book, and that will be a part of the papers that we have so that you can look at it and see it as an example. But then on the right is the blank form for you to do your writing, because I don't know who's on your list and I don't know what your resentments are, but there's space in there for you to fill that in on your own. So, 7 areas of self. The third column focus is on the 7 areas of self, and these are found on pages 64 and 65 in the big book. Our focus is on self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. I ask myself, how do my resentments affect me in these areas of my life? And keep in mind, sex relations has nothing to do with the act of sex here. Rather, the focus is on male and female relationships, or the relationship with the partner of our choice. While pride is not listed on these pages, it is included in the 7 deadly sins, which is discussed in the 12 and 12 in step 4 on page 48. It also ties in very closely with self-esteem and gives me a different perspective in looking at myself. The 7 deadly sins are pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth.
So, this is kind of what it ends up looking like, or what it should end up looking like. And that there again at the top of every page, we have these things. Please, God, please let me see the truth. We already have that page formatted for you, so all you have to do is fill in the actual writing itself. And again, the 7 areas of self are pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook from page 64. We use 1 page per resentment, not per person. This is an example of the column 3 done using the 7 areas of self and how it should look when completed. So it affects my keep columns 1 and 2, say Mr. Brown and his attention to my wife in mind while writing the 3rd column. Refer to page 65, paragraph 3. We consider it carefully. Look at the 3rd column and consider the opposite of each sentence, so to let the inventory reveal your fears behind the 7 areas of self. So, self-esteem, for example. How do I see or feel about myself? The role that I have assigned myself. Sentences start with, for example, I am the best husband she could ever have. I am the best breadwinner there is. Fears related to that are not being good enough, somebody stealing my wife. Pride. How do I think others see or feel about me? And boy, most alcoholics really have a big problem with this one. The role I have assigned myself in others' lives. Sentences start with others should or should not. And the example is, others should not pay so much attention to my wife. The fear I identified with that is maybe being alone or abandonment.
Moving on to ambition, and that's what I want to happen here. Sentences may start with I want. For example, I want a happy, healthy relationship. Or, I just want to be left alone, damn it. And the fears related to that could be being alone, or the fear of losing everything. Security. What do I need here to be okay? Sentences start with I need. Example, I need my wife to love and respect me. I need Brown to respect my marriage. Identify the fears. The fear of being disrespected, the fear of being unlovable. Sex relations, my deep-seated beliefs on how a real man or a real woman are supposed to be. Sentences will start with a real man will or a real woman will or should. Example, real men don't pursue other men's wives. Identifying the fears, perhaps abandonment. And pocketbook, this affects my finances. Sentences start with no one should, no one shouldn't. For example, others should not go in my wallet without my permission. No one should go into my phone without my permission. And perhaps Brown shouldn't ask my wife for dinner and then maybe forget his wallet and ask her to pay for it. And yeah, that's a stretch, but it happens. Identifying the fear of financial security or financial insecurity. And the reason we threw in this section, not going into my phone without permission, how many of us have all of our banking information on our phones? And if somebody were to get into my phone without my permission, or even if somebody says, hey, can I borrow your phone for something? And then get into my banking apps or Venmo or PayPal, they could send themselves a whole bunch of money and I could end up with nothing. Or at least missing a whole lot. And if it's come from my phone, it's going to be really hard to prove that I didn't authorize it. So I shouldn't go into somebody else's phone and they shouldn't go into mine, because there's a whole lot of personal information there that I don't want somebody else to get.
And again, what we have is, this is an example of on the left of what it should look like. On the right, the pages we send to you that you can print out. There again, it has these areas, these 7 areas of self already put there and identify the fear. So all you have to do is write out what God brings to you.
And if you ask for the packet of pages that we have, you will get both of these. You'll get the yellow page, but it won't have yellow in the background. It'll be white, so it doesn't kill your printer ink, so that you can have that as an example of what to write. But you'll also have the blank form as well for you to fill in. And like Jamie said earlier, you can print off as many copies as you need for this.
And our 4th column worksheet. This is where I discover my defects of character or shortcomings. The directions are found on page 67, paragraph 2 in the big book. Use 1 page per individual. Resolutely look for the harms that I have done to others. List where I am to blame. This will be the foundation for my 8-step list. This form may need to be modified for institutions. I continue to recognize my own fears. The directions for the fear inventory are found on page 68. And actually, Trish, we need to modify that because it goes from 67 to 68.
Got it. So, in looking at the 4th column, that's what we have on this page. And one of the reasons why we're throwing these on different pages rather than trying to squeeze 4, 5, 6 columns on one piece of paper is, if I do this 4th column all by itself on a piece of paper, I'm not going to run out of room. When I did my first 4th step, when I'm trying to squeeze all these columns onto the page, it's like, oh, I'm out of room, I'm not going to write anymore. But by doing it this way and using the whole page for this column, I'm not trying to squeeze it all in, and there's no way I'm going to run out of room, so I can make sure I get out everything that I need to get out. So on the top of the page, it's going to say, God, please let me see the truth. And I will need to pray that on every page. Write over it, take a moment and pause and read it, something to invite God into the process. And then the realization, how have I done the things I've resented in column 2 to the person I've listed in column 1 and or others? So like I said earlier, I've got this resentment against you, but I've also got to consider, how often did I do that same behavior towards you or to somebody else? So where had I been self-seeking? And I need to look around the whole resentment. What did I do? Where was I to blame? My selfish actions and activities were what? Who did I affect? And who else did I pull into this drama? And possible answers. I placed blame. I acted out. I called your boss to tattle. You weren't really out sick. I said I was going to be with my friends, but instead I went out to get laid. Where had I been selfish? What was my selfish thinking while I was doing the above, the self-seeking actions? My selfish attitudes were, I demanded to get my own way. I was filing divorce papers in my mind while we were in bed. I had it all planned out and you were going to pay. I cut you off.
Where had I been dishonest? What were the lies I was telling myself that resulted in my selfish thinking above? Where was I in delusion? I could find someone better. You would never be good enough. You didn't care about me and our family. Where had I been afraid? What are the fears that drive the delusions above? I was afraid of what? I was afraid I'd be alone. Even though I didn't want you, the children wouldn't have their other parent. I wouldn't be able to pay my bills and we would be homeless. I feared for my safety or retaliation. The above fears drive the dishonesty that result in the selfish attitude behind the self-seeking actions.
So now I need to consider if there are any other fears that should be on that fear list. And I want to consider the opposite of each fear as well. And if it applies, add it to the list. Don't just look for negative. Some fears can be positive as well. I fear being alone. Or, the opposite, I fear meeting another abusive partner. I fear being homeless. And a possible opposite of that, I fear having to move back in with my parents. I fear losing my job for the lies I told you when I was out. I fear my truth. I fear being successful, but I also fear having too many friends. And then the harm. Do I see the harm that I caused? Look around the whole resentment. Parents, friends, employers, innocent bystanders. And these innocent bystanders are the friends I complained to and dragged them in, but they really had nothing to do with the situation. I harmed my spouse and my children with my lies. I harmed my boss and my coworkers by not showing up for work. I harmed my relationship with other family members. I harmed my credit and financial status due to my selfish action. I harmed friendships, and these are these innocent bystanders, because I complained about my spouse to them, and even though they were friends with both of them, I wanted them to take my side.
The fear inventory. Read the big book from page 67, third paragraph. Notice the word fear to page 68, third paragraph, to outgrow fear. List all fears. Make a graph of columns, or use the fear inventory template. We will focus on the first column, then we will look at each row individually. Take all your fears you wrote in your inventory and make one single list in the first column. List each different fear only once in the first column. We ask, why do I have this fear? Look all around each fear. The next slide will show how to follow the trail of fears by looking at the fears hidden behind each fear. Reference page 68. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We ask ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance had failed us?
So, an example of the trail of underlying fears. I fear I'm not good enough. And if I'm not good enough, the fear that's kind of hiding underneath that is the fear that I'm going to be unwanted. You're not going to want me in your life anymore. So then I go to, I fear being unwanted, and what's driving that? What's under that? If I'm unwanted, I fear I'm going to be alone. And I fear being alone because I fear the emotional pain of being alone. And I fear sitting in that emotional pain because if I sit in it long enough, I fear I'm going to drink again. And I fear drinking because to me, to drink again is to die. And I fear dying because I fear the unknown, and I don't really know what dying means. And I fear the unknown because I fear there is no God. And I fear there is no God, so I repeatedly trust self-reliance, even though I fear and I know self-reliance fails me. But wasn't I really trying to kill myself anyway? And is this just the alcoholic insanity? Is this how I should think that drink through that I hear so oftentimes in meetings? And am I setting myself up for a drink when I'm drowning in my fears and not trying to separate them out to see what my actual fears are? And this next page is taking that same list that we just looked at and then just putting it in rows and columns. So that very first fear, the fear of not being good enough, and that came all the way back when we did our column 3, part of the inventory, what are the fears from how something affected me, the security. So I feared not being good enough. Because I feared not being good enough, I feared being unwanted. Behind that is the fear of being alone. And behind that is the fear of the emotional pain, leading all the way to the fear that there is no God. Now, each one of us will need to follow the trail of our own fears. And we'll look at some repeated fears a little bit later on. But I know for me, when it came down to it, I started out with a really good sized length of fears. But once I got to the end, they really all boiled down to only 4 or 5 different main fears that I had. So I could look at the fears, follow the trail, and it's like, okay, which one of these 5 is it going to end up? Because it almost always ended up with one of those fears. And Jamie, this is your page.
Let's talk about sex, the sex inventory and ideal, from the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, page 68 through 69. Now about sex, many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It is easy to get way off track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cried that sex is a lust of our lower nature and a base necessity of procreation. Then we have voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not wish to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the past years. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should have we done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it.
And the sex inventory and sex ideal questions from page 68 and 69. And the following are the directions for the sex inventory. Just put in question form instead of paragraph form, taken directly out of the book. And again, we always ask God to show us what we need to see before we get started. So first, we read the big book from page 68 in the 4th paragraph, where Jamie just started, where it says, now about sex. And we read to page 70, the 2nd paragraph, ending with would bring heartache. And then prayer. Make a list of all the relationships in my life. Third, determine what can be done. Write a brief history of each relationship, including motives for getting involved, specific sex conduct, major points in the relationship, and how the relationship ended or how it is now. Your turn.
Sorry. I review my conduct and look at each relationship and answering the following questions. And these 9 questions are in the book in pages 68 and 69. Where had I been selfish? Where had I been dishonest? Where had I been inconsiderate? Whom did I hurt, including those we brought into our drama, including the innocent bystanders, family members, children, friends, so on? Did I arouse jealousy? Did I arouse suspicion? Did I arouse bitterness? Where was I at fault? And what should I have done instead? The answer to the last question is never, I shouldn't have gotten involved, because I can't change the past. I did get involved, and it has now become an experience of my life. Refer instead to what should I have done or how should I have behaved in the relationship. Make sure to be especially complete with this answer, since it will be used later in writing my sex ideal.
And in writing my sex ideal from pages 69 and 70, in this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and to help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose, and we avoid hysterical thinking or advice.
Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so. But this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we've done, and we have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry, and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing, these are the facts of our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. The reading continues through the end of the chapter on page 71, encouraging us to review our work and then move forward towards amends. This also encourages us to continue to align ourselves with God so that He can remove whatever self-will has blocked me from Him.
So the following slides are a real working example of a fourth step inventory. It follows the first resentment in column 1, all the way from first resentment through all 4 columns, discovery along the trail of fears, and ending with the sex inventory and sex ideal. And this takes us through the entire inventory process starting on page 65 to the end of page 71 and completes step 4 on this one resentment.
We felt it was important to give a real life example of something that happened rather than just the hypothetical diagram that Bill gave us, so this way we could see what it should actually look like. So this is a real working example of an actual resentment, starting with the first name and the first resentment. It's Dad. The cause: he abandoned us and our family and left us with nothing and nowhere to go. Use the following pages to continue with 1 page for each resentment. Multiple resentments would mean multiple pages. So if you have 5 resentments against someone, that would mean 5 individual pages.
Again, that way you don't run out of room when you're writing. So, looking at the 7 areas of self. I am resentful at my father. I am resentful at him because he abandoned our family and left us with nothing and nowhere to go. This affects my self-esteem. I am not good enough for him to stick around. He loved my brother more. The fears, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being alone, and the fear of abandonment. This affects my pride. No father should be angry or violent to a 3-year-old. Fathers shouldn't leave their sons. And the fears there: anger, violence, being unlovable, and again, the fear of abandonment.
Trish, I think we need to put on that page, this is column 3.
Yes.
We need to add into that. Okay, continuing in the 7 areas of self. This affects my ambition. I want my dad back. I want to be loved by my dad. I want my dad to be a good role model. The fears associated with that are abandonment, not having a role model, not having a strong father presence in my life. This affects my security. I need to feel safe to be okay. I need to feel loved to be okay. I need to have shelter and food to be okay. Fears associated with that are homelessness, hunger, being hurt, alone, emotional pain, and unlovable. This affects my personal relationships. Real men don't leave their families. Real men support their families. Fears associated with that are the fear of being alone, not knowing how to treat others. This affects my sex relations. Real men don't bring strange people into their homes to have sex with their families and then leave to have some sex somewhere else. The fears there are abandonment, sexual abuse, maybe molestation, not being safe, fear of not knowing what a healthy relationship is. This affects my pocketbooks. Others should not threaten my home, food, utility, finances, etc. The fears associated with there are homelessness, abandonment, going hungry, not being able to pay my bills. Notice the repeated fears. This will be expanded on another page in the fear inventory.
So now the 4th column. And again, at the top of the page, God, please let me see the truth, or let me see what you want me to see. Pray something to invite God and keep God in the process. The realization, did I repeat or develop the same behaviors that I resented in column 1 or in column 2 to the person that I've listed in column 1 or others? Where had I been self-seeking? I acted out to get my own way. I put unreasonable demands on my father, mother, or other family members. I knew emotional drama would always get me attention. I blamed you for my problems. Where had I been selfish? I didn't care what others had to sacrifice to please me. I constantly demanded attention. When I didn't get the attention, I accused others of not loving me. Where had I been dishonest? I would always tell lies. I would steal. If I got in trouble, I would blame others. I had been dishonest for so long, I couldn't see what the real truth was. The biggest tragedy I see now is I was lying to me.
And 4th column worksheet continued. Where had I been afraid? I was afraid of being caught in my lies. I was afraid that I wouldn't be loved because of my lies. I was afraid I would always be alone and not wanted by anyone. The above fears drive the delusions that result in the attitude behind the actions. Consider if there are any other fears that should be on this list. Consider the opposite of each fear, if it applies, and add it to the list. For example, I had fear of abandonment, or fear of staying in a toxic relationship, fear of being alone, or filling my life with too many people, fear of too many people in my life, or fear of being invisible to others, fear of staying in a bad relationship, or not being financially stable enough to be on my own.
And those red ors in the middle is the best separator we could come up with. So it's not necessarily an either or, but showing that those are kind of opposites of the same fear, and maybe they both apply. Maybe neither applies. But it's really up to you to look at both sides of the fear and see perhaps both sides apply. And here is our trail of fears again, and this time it is all filled out. And again, in that third column, we recognize that our first fear was not being good enough. And why do I have the fear of not being good enough? Is because I fear I'm going to be unwanted. And why do I have this fear? Is because if I'm not wanted, I fear I'm going to be alone. And why do I have this fear? Because if I'm alone, I fear that I'm going to be sitting in that emotional pain. And if I'm sitting in that emotional pain, I'm afraid I'm going to drink. And if I'm drinking, I'm afraid I'm either going to die or I'm going to go insane. And why do I have the fear of death and insanity? Because I don't know what either one is going to lead me to. I don't know what would happen in either one. And why do I fear the unknown? Because I fear there is no God. And that brings me right back, like we did in the first example. If I fear there's no God, I am living in self-reliance and self-will. So now I'm going to come down. The second fear that I found going through that third column was the fear of being alone. And if I look up in that first row, being alone is in the third column. So I put these red X's in just simply to tell me, stop, I've done this one already. Because if I've already followed being alone all the way to the end, I don't have to follow it again and repeat the same work. So I'm going to come down one more line or one more row to abandonment. And what's the fear? What's the fear behind the fear of abandonment? Is the fear of being alone. So there we go. 3 times, 3 different fears, but each one has led me to the fear of being alone. And that's what I was talking about a little bit before, is even though I had this really long column, a really long list of fears, the same ones kept popping up as I worked all the way through. So I'm going to go down to one down to the next row, the fear of anger. And why do I have the fear of anger? Because it's an unpredictable emotion. And why do I fear that unpredictability? Because I don't know what I'm capable of. And why do I fear that? Is because that's going to put me right in that emotional pain, because I don't know what I'm going to do once I hit that anger state. And I've already followed emotional pain in that first row, so again the X's. I don't have to follow it again. Coming down one more row. I fear having violence towards me. I don't want to be hurt. Why do I have that? Because I have a fear of being hurt, whether it's physical or emotional. I have a fear of somebody else hurting me. Why do I have this fear? Because that puts me right into that emotional pain again. So we've gone now through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different fears off of our fear list. 2 of them have been repeated a few times. So when I go to do my 5th step with my sponsor, I can take this and say, hey, these are my big fears. I think I have a whole lot. I think I have this whole big list, but when I get right down to it, these are 2 of my biggies. Not all this other stuff, it's hiding. So it's always going and looking deeper. What's causing that fear? What's causing that fear? And then underneath, I'm probably going to find I've only got 3 or 4, maybe 5 fears out of a whole list. And those are the fears that I take to my sponsor in my 5th step and say, okay, help me with this. Where do I go next?
Trish mentioned that there's that fear of somebody hurting me. Could be the flip side of that too. Could be the fear of me hurting somebody else because of this emotional pain that I'm carrying. So, this is a real working example of a sex inventory. This is based on a list I made from my own history of relationships from page 69. This is not continuing the work of column 1. This inventory is our own conduct in relationships and not based in resentments. So the name of the person, the relationship, and write a brief history of the relationship. My motives for getting involved. He or she sure was cute. He or she sure was friendly. His or her smile made me melt. My specific conduct in the relationship has been. My specific conduct was totally self-seeking so that I could feel better about myself. Others commented on how cute my boyfriend or girlfriend was.
The major points that came up in the relationship is I don't play well with others. I always want my own way, and it's always or usually sexually motivated. I want control in every situation, whether it's sexual or not. I would do whatever it took to keep you from leaving me. Would fight over spending time with my family at holidays. Religion and politics would always lead to more fighting and sometimes to more beatings. How did it end, or how is it now? I walked away in anger because you didn't do what I wanted. Or I acted in a way that I knew would cause you to leave. That way, I wasn't the bad one for leaving. But it boils down to the relationship on both of our parts was so sick and toxic that leaving was just a means of survival for both of us. Now, a quick thought. After the process of taking the steps and making amends, some of these relationships do heal and can become healthy friendships. But the important part is that I've taken a look at and taken responsibility for my part, whether that friendship starts growing again or not.
And again, this is a real working example of a sex inventory from an actual history. Look at each relationship and answer the 9 questions. Reference page 69 in the big book. Where had I been selfish, concerned only with myself? I wanted sex all the time, or I never wanted sex. I was demanding. When I didn't want sex, I pushed you away or rejected you. I demanded unhealthy or unreasonable sex. Where had I been dishonest, deceptive, and fraudulent? I said you were the only one, but you weren't. I said I was going to work early, but then I stopped to see my girlfriend first. Where had I been inconsiderate, my disregard for others? I did not consider your feelings. I did not consider your plans. I decided to stay late at work and went to see my girlfriend.
Whom did I hurt? And I want to look all around the relationship. I hurt my spouse. I hurt our children. I hurt my girlfriend or boyfriend's children. I hurt extended family members. I hurt my relationships at work when they caught me in my lies. How did I arouse jealousy? I constantly and openly flirted with others in front of my husband. I flirted with my friends' husbands in front of them. How did I arouse suspicions? How did I make you doubt my honesty? I lied about where I was going to be and when I would be home. I would constantly take phone calls or texts when I was home, and I wouldn't talk to you or let you know who it was from or what it was about. I would call you from his house with his parrot squawking in the background, but I couldn't figure out how you knew I was there. How did I arouse bitterness or deep resentment? I would leave our family gatherings to see his family instead. I paid his rent and neglected our family. I lashed out in anger, always defensive. But he needs me. And where was I at fault? I put my family second to his family and their needs.
And question number 9, what should I have done instead? Don't write, never gotten involved in the first place. Instead, what should my behavior in the relationship have been? Make sure you're especially explicit about number 9. You will refer back to the list when writing this sex ideal. Reference page 69. I should have put my family first. Should have been honorable and faithful. Financially and emotionally supported my family. I should have been kind, loving, and tolerant. I should have taken care of others' needs before mine. I should have prayed and asked for God's help. The harms. Write any specific harm that comes to you while writing. The realization that I caused deep emotional wounds in my family that may never be repaired. Many of the things I did could be considered abusive or narcissistic. In my experience, I have caused unknown and sometimes irreversible damage to the lives of others. And a prayer. God, I ask you to help mold the ideal relationship, what the ideal relationship in my life should be, that I may be able to live by that ideal and be able to live in a healthy relationship with others. Amen. Hang on before you move that page, Trish. This part of the unknown cause that I may have caused others. I'll give you a real life example. When I was married to my first wife, we were just a couple of 19-year-old kids. And there was this really, really cute girl at work, and she smiled pretty at me. And what it did is it brought up some things in my life of I wasn't sure how I felt. And I made the mistake of telling my wife that. And it was the beginning of the end of my first marriage. We had a child, and the result is I didn't have that child in my life for 32 years. And about 15, 16 years ago, we reconciled. But my ex-wife and my daughter both still carry emotional pain and an emotional baggage from that. To the best of my ability, I have made my amends. But the rest of the work is between them and God now. Whether or not they will ever heal, I don't know, but I pray that they will. Just thought I'd throw that out there because it's a real life situation. Go ahead, Trish.
Now that we have followed the instructions and taken a look at ourselves and our conduct, let us now turn to page 69, paragraphs 3 and 4, and refer to the instructions in finding our sexual ideal. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and to help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it.
There are 12 steps and 12 traditions for recovery. There are 11 chapters in our book. Is it possible that chapter 12 in your big book will be your story? So how will it read? Finding yourself through this inventory could be the beginning of your chapter 12. It is now up to you to write your 12th chapter.
And a 5th step note. The bottom of page 74 to the top of page 75 gives us the directions of how to choose who is to hear our 5th step. Its suggestion is that we choose someone that will keep our confidentiality. This could be a priest, minister, rabbi, or a counselor, people who are bound by confidentiality by law. However, our experience has taught us of the value of taking this step with another alcoholic, sponsorship. We believe that the advantage to this is that the experience of another alcoholic knows where to direct us next through the process of recovery. We recommend that you prayerfully ask God to bring the right person into our lives to help us through this process.
We hope that you will continue to join us in our bi-monthly workshop as this work is only a beginning into the truth about ourselves. It is our experience that when people return month after month with new questions, we all grow in effectiveness and understanding. We continue to ask God to mold us into the people He would have us be, so that we can help others find their truth. Yours in service with love, Lppbbsg. And now we are open for questions, comments. If you need to go back to any slides, we will be happy to field whatever you have. So welcome. You can just unmute and come on in. Wow, silence is golden. Everybody's like, no, I hate it. I don't want to.
No questions tonight.
Wow. Amazing. I guess that means everybody's spiritually healthy. Ain't nothing wrong here, Mom. Hey, hi, Jackie. Come on in.
Hi, hi everyone. I have a cold, but I do have a question. It was slide, where I wrote it in. Uh, it was the third step prayer, and I know there's not an amen at the end of that prayer, but I just have a question. I was told earlier that was like a declaration statement. Is that true or?
Some people seem to think it is. So let me put it this way. Because God gave us free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can't do anything in our lives without an invitation from us to come into our lives, be part of our lives, to show us these things, to guide us, to help relieve us of the mental obsession and the desires that we have. So the third step prayer, while it says in the book that the words are quite optional right after the third step prayer, that this is a basic idea, right? So let me touch on step 3 itself for a second. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So there's a couple of things about that. I don't know what the hell my will and my life has really been. I just know that my life has been a train wreck, and through my alcoholism I've done lots of auditions to get on the Jerry Springer show. So the third step prayer becomes the invitation, but I go through it's steps 4 and 5, the discovery process, that teaches me what my will in my life has been, why I do the things the way I do, why I'm hurt the way I am, the retaliation that I've done, all of those things that we just went through. But I'm also asked to turn these things over to God. Well, who's God? What God? The popes, the Mormon bishops, the Baptist minister, the snake shaker? I don't know. Because everybody else has done this. Everybody else has tried to put God in a box for me. Get a little closer here to the camera. They've tried to put God in a box and tell me what God's supposed to be, right? And I get to hurting in life a little bit and a little pain, and I open the box a little bit and I say a prayer, and then I slam the lid on the box, and I go back to doing things in my self-will. So Steps 4 and 5 also are the beginning of this relationship with God, even if I've been raised religiously. And it is the process of steps 6 and 7. And in step 6, on page 76, asks us if we are willing to believe that God can remove from us all of these things in ourselves that we have found objectionable. What are those objectionable things? It's the stuff we found in our 4th column through this inventory. And then I get to the 7th step prayer. And it is the process of giving my will and my life that I just discovered through this 4th step process to God through the prayer in the book, which says something to the effect, my Creator, I am now ready that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. So that 7th step prayer finishes the prayer that we started with in the 3rd step prayer. And through this whole process, we have been praying and we've been asking God to show us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of sense. Thank you.
You are welcome. There's something else about it. Now, it might say this in some other people's big books, but it doesn't say this in mine. After that amen at the end of the 7th step prayer, it does not say, congratulations, Santana, you have now completed step 7. You get to control and manipulate your defects of character to have the outcome and effect in people's lives that you want. It means I don't get a choice anymore because I don't know what is or isn't of any use to God. I believe some of my defects of character I will take to my grave. Many of them are no longer glaring like they used to be so many years ago, but I'm still capable of being that guy. And I love it when I hear people say in meetings, I'm working on my defects of character, and I really? Where the hell does it say that in the book?
Right.
Because I haven't found that page. I believe the reason that I will still have some of these defects of character is because God is keeping me in a place of remaining teachable. And if I remain teachable, I will get to experience moments of humility on the journey. So that's why I call from step 3 to step 7 the cycle of 5 steps. They're done in this succession, but they show me what my will in my life has been, and they show me how to give it to God, and I've developed this relationship through the process. Great question, thank you. Anybody else?
Jamie, I have one more. I'm gonna be quiet.
Okay, you can ask as many as you like, my dear.
Okay, slide 26. You talked about, I can't remember the whole slide, but it says feelings are not facts.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we do feel, and I forgot how that slide went, and I forgot what you said, but we do feel, even though they're not facts, we do feel.
We do. And just a second, since Trish is out of the room.
I had a question about that slide. It said something on that slide. I didn't get the whole thing.
Trish, pull up slide 26, feelings aren't facts. The one after it, the green slide.
And the reason why I say that, I mean, okay, feelings are not facts, and it may not be a fact, but I feel what I feel, and for so long, prior to coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, I denied my feelings. Understood. Feelings aren't facts, but they are valid. Okay. and we need to find out where they come from and decide what we are going to do with them. Okay, I got you. They are valid. I got you.
Absolutely, and let me expand on that a little bit. When I got sober, my sponsor Art, who you have met in this meeting, and he just passed away a couple of weeks ago. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. Um, he said, Jamie, there is no such thing as an inappropriate feeling. You feel what you feel, and you own the feeling. But once you discover what it is that you feel and why it is that you feel what you're feeling, the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? Now, for the old Allman Brother fans in the group, I will say, I can take those feelings and I can keep my happy ass tied to the emotional whooping post and beat the crap out of myself with my feelings. Or I can go through some journaling. I love the idea of put pen to paper because it helps me separate facts from feelings and it shows me what the truth is. I'll give you an example. Anger is an emotion is a feeling. So anger, for example, is nothing more than aged hurt. And it's kind of like the old car commercial, from 0 to 60 in 2.2 seconds. Sometimes when my feelings are hurt, that's all the longer it takes for that anger to become activated. And if I don't do something to discover why I'm hurt, the byproduct of the hurt is the anger, the byproduct of the anger is resentment, the byproduct of the resentment is my column 4 and me acting out and trying to hurt someone else. Right? Oftentimes we don't feel good. I wanted to be invited to a birthday party or to a New Year's Eve party or to a dance, and they forgot about me. Don't they know who I am? Or maybe in a marriage or a relationship, she forgot it was our anniversary, and I'm hurt. And now I'm hurt and I'm mad. And those are real feelings. But did I bother to find out why they forgot? Was it because my brain says they forgot about it because they don't love me, because they don't care about me. But maybe they just had such a chaotic day themselves that they didn't even remember their own anniversary. That oftentimes happens. And I think a lot of times it goes back to what we read on page 61 and 62. Are not most of us selfish and self-seeking in our own attitudes in life? And when we are, do we really think about others? Or are we just thinking mostly about ourselves? Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, thanks, Jamie.
You are welcome. It is my pleasure. Anybody else?
I'll go. How about slide 41?
How about slide 41, Trish?
That was a fear template.
Okay.
That, the example of the fear template, do you want that one or do you want the whole one filled out?
The whole one filled out. Where I think it was abandonment or whatever kept coming in.
That would be 53.
Oh, was it 53?
Well,
Okay.
We on 40 or 41, it's where we started, but
That
we
one.
expand on it here.
Yeah, 53. So you said, I think you said there was like 2. I couldn't keep up with the explanation of that. So
okay, so when I go across the first row, I have the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being unwanted, being alone, the emotional pain, drinking, death or insanity, unknown, and there is no God.
Mhm.
Let me start with this. When we went through columns 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're listing all of our fears, they're all in this column right here. And in this column right here. 2 different slides. We don't go through both slides because that would add another half an hour to the workshop.
Okay.
But then when I go down to the row 2, the second fear that I found when I was doing column 3, this affects mine. The fear that came up was being alone, and it's here, but it's also here. So this X just says, I've done that one already, I don't have to do it again.
Right.
So I go down to the third one, abandonment. The fear of abandonment is the fear of being alone. Here it is again, 1, 2, 3. 3 fears, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being alone, the fear of abandonment, all tie in really to being alone.
Okay. Again.
And then here it is again, the fear of being unlovable. Why do I have this fear? Because I'm afraid I'm not worthy of your love. I'm not good enough. And the fear behind that is I don't deserve anything. And if I don't deserve anything, you're going to walk away and I'm going to be alone. Does that help? So now in the midst of this whole big column of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different fears, when I work the trail all the way to the end 4 or 5 different times, I have found the fear of being alone being in there somewhere.
Right.
So it's not these here, but what's underneath that's hiding. That fear of being alone must be a big one in my life.
Mhm.
Also known as it's a pattern. And the
Right.
patterns that I find in step 4 are the things I take to my sponsor saying, I found a pattern, now what? And then I have that discussion with my sponsor.
Okay.
Before you get off that slide,
Yes.
here's a question to ask ourselves when it comes to relationships. How many times have we stayed in sick, unhealthy relationships out of desperation because of the fear of being alone? Even though we know we're treated badly, even though we may be involved with a narcissist or someone who cheats on us or any of those things, oftentimes we stay in sick relationships because of the fear of not having anybody, of not being worthy. And it is so emotionally destructive to us. How many times have so many people been in relationships, battered relationships, and beaten, women and children, backed up with the words, I'm doing this because I love you. It's a really, really sick, warped perception of what love is. I need to learn how to love myself, and that's what this whole 4th step process teaches me to do. If I go through the rest of my life without anybody else, it's okay. Hey, Larry. You'll have to unmute.
Hey, it's good to be here. Good to be with everybody. What I wanted to say is that I appreciate it. I'm here with one of my sponsees, and we've been able to. Not only one of my sponsees, but he's technical sharp. He was able to screenshot everything, and so we're getting together, and he put in his email, so if you'll send him the templates and everything, we'll get everything. And I'm I really appreciate everything. I'm sorry that we had a little trouble. We couldn't get his computer to get onto my internet, so finally we just set up my computer and both got in, but we didn't miss much. So thanks for having this again. And you know, when you were talking about everything, Jamie, not only not only is step 3 prayer give us the ability to help us see the, you know, the how our will and you know, and answer for us how we can give our will and our lives over to God. But I didn't really have a clear idea of, you know, I said my conscious, you know, this God I had an ideal of this God that I was trusting in, but I really had no idea who he was. I didn't have that understanding. It was almost blind faith in the 3rd step. It was that 5, 6, and 7 that did clarify that to me and give me more clarification of who I was trusting in. And that's what is so beautiful about this program in the 4th and the 5th and these steps and how it's done in progression. Thank you for this workshop. I love it so much. Thanks, Jamie. We're going to have to go, but I so appreciate you taking the time to have us again and hosting this thing.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
This is Hayden.
Hey,
And,
Hayden, teach Larry how to do shit,
he is
okay?
33, 3 months and 3 days sober. He was 3 months Friday. So
Congratulations. Teach Larry stuff.
We'll see you again.
he is teaching me. And if he can't teach me something, then I'm doing something wrong.
Well, come join us for our big book study tomorrow night.
All right, thank you.
Best one on the planet.
Appreciate it.
Take care. I'm gonna head out too.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you all for being here.